Hi, welcome to the 12th House Podcast. This is Michelle. I'm here in a 14th century Italian villa on an amazing retreat with the team. And maybe you can hear that I'm in a gigantic, arched, amazing marble hallway because this is our sitting room. But I'm so excited for today's episode. If you haven't been tuning in, because maybe you've been on vacation, or maybe you've been traveling, or I don't know, maybe you've taken a podcast break over the last couple of weeks and you're just getting back to the 12th house now, welcome back. We've been focusing on the idea of money and kind of like unraveling some mysteries around money. My dad was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. Last week I talked about some of my own sort of experiences with money. And this week I'm so excited to introduce you to Mimi Bouchard, who's the founder of Superhuman. It's a meditation app. You'll hear a little bit more about it. It's a functional audio app, really. And the reason that we really wanted to talk to Mimi was because she has figured out how to make this business, this digital app that costs a lot of money to make, and bootstrap it herself. Bootstrapping just means that you pay for something out of pocket. You don't have outside investors, so the money comes from you. A lot of times when we have a big idea, especially a big idea that requires a lot of capitalization, either we are making a physical product that we need to put out into the world with, thousands of units, or maybe it's a digital product like an app or a website or a new piece of technology. There are a lot of upfront startup costs that require a lot of what you would call capitalization. Capital is just money, right? It's just funding. So typically, in order to make these things happen, as small business owners, we often find ourselves thinking that we need to go out and raise money from people outside of us, whether they're venture capitalists or angel investors or other types of investors, or even getting a loan at a bank, which I think people don't think about it as often. It might seem old-fashioned, but that used to be the way that we funded businesses. It still is the way we fund businesses, and it's just not as sexy as, getting money thrown at you from a bunch of investors. And the final way is through bootstrapping it yourself, so taking money from your own account and investing it back into the business. It's really admirable, I think, when people can figure out how to bootstrap their businesses themselves, because especially if they they don't have money, if like they've had to make money themselves in order to finance their dreams. But I also think it makes you a really conscientious, calculating in a good way entrepreneur. And it really asks you to get clear on what you want and to get really clear on your intuition. It's so easy when there are other sort of cooks in the kitchen, when other people's money is at play. And we know that often money can be interchanged for power. When there's other people's sort of power dynamics at play in your business, that can, pretty quickly sort of like shield what's clear for you, or obscure what's clear for you is probably a better turn of phrase. And that can make running an intuitive business very challenging. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It just means that that's like a sort of obstacle you're going to have to overcome. It's a muscle you're going to have to flex, getting clearer with yourself. But I know so many incredible entrepreneurs. My friend Milana Snow comes to mind too, in addition to Mimi, who are so clear with themselves and have decided to bootstrap their businesses and have just grown them to incredible heights. So I'm excited for you to hear this episode with Mimi and to hear her talk a little bit more about Supernatural and her journey. And I love that she was open to debate and conversation around some of these concepts that are a little trickier to sort of navigate and that maybe we have differing views on. So I think you're going to love the episode. Before we get into it, I just want to thank our podcast sponsor, Flowdesk. Flowdesk is our email service provider of choice. We are obsessed with Flowdesk. It's helped us grow our email newsletter from something very small to over 100,000 subscribers. And partially that's because of, the technology that Flowdesk has built. They make it so easy to make landing pages and opt-ins and honestly to send emails. But also because their emails are truly beautiful. It's so easy for me to design, and I'm not a designer, to design a gorgeous email in Flowdesk in like 10 minutes. The thing that takes me the longest is just writing it and to send it out and have incredible open rates, incredible click-through rates, and actually have people asking me, wait, when does the next email come out? Or wait, I missed last week's email. Where have you been in my inbox? That's truly an honor as a small business owner, and I have Flowdesk to thank for it. So if you are thinking of starting a business or an email newsletter, or really if you just want to make content out in the world, I can't recommend enough starting your email list. And I would get started with Flowdesk. If you use the code Holisticism, you'll get 50% off for your entire first year of using Flowdesk. That means it's $19 a month. And the best thing about Flowdesk is that they don't charge you per subscriber. Lots of popular email service providers like MailChimp and ConvertKit charge you per person or per 1,000 subscribers or 500 subscribers that you have. So you kind of get penalized for growing. You have to pay more money. Flowdesk, that's not the case. And that's part of the reason I love it so much. It's so cost effective, especially if you're bootstrapping your business. So go get that year-long discount. It's really fucking good by using the code Holisticism at checkout, or you can go to flowdesk.com/holisticism. Okay, with that, let's get into the episode. Hi, Mimi. It's so good to talk to you.
It's so nice to talk to you too, Michelle. Thank you for having me. I'm so jealous you're in Italy. We're just totally vibing. And yeah, I'm super excited to be on the show.
For so many reasons, so excited to talk to you. I mean, I'm always inspired by other women who are making technology, especially who have figured out how to either bootstrap their business and make it grow with not a traditional business background, but a lot of what we do at Holisticism is intuitive business. And that means sort of merging for us the esoteric, the holistic, the spiritual with, like our intelligence, our inherent innate intelligence. Have you always been motivated by entrepreneurship?
Well, this just sounds like the perfect show to be on then, because that's everything that I do. Yes, I've always been very stubborn, and I always hated being told what to do. So naturally, I became an entrepreneur because I wanted to be my own boss, and I couldn't think of myself in more of a traditional path because I hated conformity. And so I'll give you a very quick life story. I was born and raised in Toronto, Canada. When I was 18, the moment I could, I left and I went to university on the other side of Canada in Halifax for a couple of semesters.
Wow.
Really decided it wasn't for me. I was really trying to still kind of be in the cool crowd and do what I thought I was supposed to do and, live the teenage experience. But very, very quickly I realized that it's just not me. I'm not this type of person that wants to go down the traditional path. So I dropped out of university and then decided to move to London, England on a whim. It was a very random decision, but
yeah, what made you do that? Were you just like, did you see the Mary-Kate and Ashley movie about London? And you were like, that's me, London calling, I have to go there. Like, what was it?
Well, although Mary-Kate and Ashley had a very big, part of my childhood, it wasn't that. Funny enough, just a side note, I live in the Bahamas now, and the Atlantis is like on the same island.
Okay, wait, are you sure that Mary-Kate and Ashley didn't seep into your subconscious in some way?
Well, I wanted to go to the Atlantis when I was younger so badly. My parents couldn't afford it, so it was. Oh my God. So literally last year I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the Atlantis, and I went on the water slide and I lived my inner child's dream.
Go on the big water slide, the huge one that goes on where the sharks are. That is truly my dream. That's amazing.
It's not as cool as you would have thought when you were 5 years old, but whatever. Anyway, moving on. Yes. I wanted to go as far away as I could that was like English speaking. And London just happened. I left university and my parents were like, okay, like you're just going to leave school and start this online magazine, because I wanted to start this online magazine blog thing that I was starting. Wow. And, I coded the website myself, learning on YouTube. Half the screen was like tutorials on HTML code. The other half of the screen was doing my own website. This is before like Squarespace was invented. So
that's like the MySpace days when we were all like learning HTML so we could like make rainbows on our MySpace page.
We literally, we are so much smarter than the current generation.
Honestly, people love to shit on millennials, but come on, we figured some stuff out.
Oh yeah, for sure. 100%. I love those like memes that before, like the me when I was 12, people now when they're 12, and it's like, like
yes, exactly. And like body glitter and just pimples.
A lot of pimples. Anyway, so I moved to London, and my parents, my family were kind of like, oh, so you're leaving school. Like, okay, what are you going to do? And I decided that I wanted to have, create my online magazine. It was called Mimi B. I found a course, a month-long course in London, England, actually, that following fall after I left school. And I was like, okay, mom and dad, I'm going to go here, and I'm just going to do this month-long course that was on fashion journalism. And I'm going to see if I like this place. And I ended up just applying for a residency or visa when I was there for 1 month, and I just fell in love with the city. I loved who I was in London, and I had always been, just in Toronto in Canada, living the same life with the same people around me. And I was craving change, radical change. I liked who I was when I wasn't around anyone I grew up with. I needed something radical. And being alone a lot the first couple years I was in London. I'd never had a boyfriend before. I was always kind of, traveling around, and I was just alone a lot. And I think that was really great for my personal development. And, I've always been in the personal development space, and naturally that online magazine turned into me posting more on social media, trying out many different entrepreneurial, ventures. I tried basically so much in my 5 years in London. And then I kind of just fell onto this meditation app thing in a very interesting way. It clicked, and it's my first real big business. It's my baby. And, I employ 5 people now. We are growing like crazy. I now live in the Bahamas. So I moved from London to the Bahamas 2 years ago, and I now have my first boyfriend became my life partner. We met 5 years ago. So he moved here with me, and everything's changed, but it's just fallen into place. And I can't tell you that it's been a linear process. And I always like to preface this when I'm in interviews, because it's like, wow, Mimi, it was just like from here to there, and you just created this success. But no, in reality, there are so many ups and downs, as obviously, as an entrepreneur, there are moments of despair and doubting yourself and having nothing and losing things, and then just having a new idea, going all in, not knowing if it's going to work, and then trying something else. I probably went through 10 different business ideas before Superhuman, flourished into what it is today. And we have tens of thousands of members that are subscribed to the app, doing the meditations daily. And there are very, very unique, different meditations that we can get into later. But yeah, it's really just fallen into place. And I've used the tools that I teach when it comes to personal development. I hesitate to use the word manifestation, but it really is that as well. It's creating the life you desire through, your energy and what you do and how you feel, and your self-image, most importantly, which we can get into later as well. That's my biggest focus is making my self-image aligned with what I desire, because that's the trick to success. And that's the kind of manifestation I teach in the meditations as well. And I'm a living proof. I'm the poster child for this platform. And it actually started because years ago, I was trying to get into meditation. Back when I was living in London, I was broke. I literally had $10 to my name, and I have screenshots on my Instagram. People were asking, people always like to say, oh, you grew up in a rich family and you just get everything handed to you. I'm like, okay, look at this bank statement, please.
Yeah. It's also very, I remember taking screenshots of my bank account being, withdrawn, and being like, in the future, I will look back on this. Right now, I'm so ashamed, but I really will look back on this as a success. I know that I'm going to shift from this at some point.
Yes. I love how you say that, because it's so funny. I always had this weird calmness about me being broke back in the day.
Right.
I knew that was going to change. I knew deep down in my gut that this work I was doing was going to pay off. And of course there are moments of me having massive doubt and being depressed and not happy. But I remember when I look back, I really think I just had this deep belief in myself, and it's because I was doing the self-image work, and I just knew there was no other options.
Is that nurture or nature? Did you always kind of have that faith? It sounds like, when you dropped out of school, your parents, you made it seem like they were like, okay, we trust you, that you know what's right for you, and you're going to go do the thing that makes sense. Do you think that's just an innate quality that you have? Obviously, you've developed it over time, but it seems like a muscle that you strengthen as opposed to something that you have to sort of a skill you have to acquire. I don't know. What's your perspective on that?
That's an amazing question. And I am very blessed to have been brought up by my parents that really cheered me on my whole life. I will say that I think it's always been within me. I think it's within all of us, though. I really do believe that every single person listening, every single person on the planet can create the life of their desires. I think it's really, again, a self-image thing. But when I was really young, I remember thinking I could do anything. And then that faded away from the ages of 11 to 16 to 17. I went through a very dark kind of phase during that time, my preteen and teen years. I really was disconnected to myself and had a lot of issues, honestly, kind of just, I was very depressed and wasn't in a good state. And something happened when I got that moment of clarity right before, like when I dropped out of university. I stopped drinking and going out for a little bit. I was trying to get a bit healthier. I was doing a lot of drugs and, just not feeling like myself. My soul was yelling at me saying, what are you doing? Stop. This isn't you. And I just decided to stop drinking and to get a bit clear. And I locked myself in my little residence room in university. It was literally a 200 square foot bedroom. And I bought a journal and I just started writing. And I'm like, what do I want to do with my life? And it was this is for weeks. I literally locked myself in the room and I'd go get food from the cafeteria, bring it upstairs, and I wouldn't talk to anyone. And I had this was like it was just an intuition that I have to do that. And then things kind of catapulted from there. But to answer your question, I had the benefit from having very loving, supporting parents. And my grandparents weren't, though. They were very angry that I wouldn't go to school. And I think they had helped pay for my secondary school because my parents couldn't really afford it. My grandparents, wanted me to do that. And it was very important for them. But I just ended up saying, no, I have to do this. And I remember, though, my random uncle at the dinner table before I moved to London saying, like, you're not going to last 3 months as an entrepreneur. And it's funny because I saw him a couple of weeks ago. We were in Vermont for a family trip and I'm now making 10 times the amount as him. And he's just like, oh, well, I am sorry, Mimi. He remembered he said that. He said that. He remembered.
Really?
He was like, I'm sorry. And it was a full circle moment because I was like, it's so funny. I'm just treated so differently now. And my parents believed in me, but they never had success. They didn't really know. They were just supportive. And, they were creative artists that just kind of like, oh, you can do anything, be anything. But at the end of the day, I look back feeling very alone most of my childhood as well. Like I have a big sister and I love her, but I always felt misunderstood, especially with my parents too. And I was very lonely. And then, there's a lot of factors.
It seems like your family had maybe different priorities than you.
Very different.
A different internal drive.
My parents actually were against rich people. Like I grew up thinking rich people aren't happy, right.
Money's bad. People who have money are bad. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that was a belief that I had to really change within myself because I always had combated that with my mom. I was like, what do you mean rich people aren't happy? Like,
they seem happy. Sure, a lot of them seem happy.
No, I didn't mean it that way. I was just thinking, how does that make sense? Like, there are poor people and rich people. How is it that just rich people are unhappy? You would think that, they're a little bit in each bucket. But I learned from a young age to only take advice from people that have what I want. And that's a really great piece of advice that I've always kind of took on. So I was a bit of a rebel. I never really went with the status quo, but, yeah, all in all, to wrap up that question, yes, I'm grateful and incredibly blessed to have loving parents growing up. I think it would have been a lot harder if I had an abusive household. But I will say, we had a lot of financial distress when I was younger, and I remember not being able to do things and being very ashamed and embarrassed having friends over to our tiny little house. And, I had a lot of shame growing up around that, and I wasn't really ever taught about money in a positive way. So I'm happy that I've carved that path myself. But that being said, I take 100% responsibility for my life, and that can trigger some people sometimes, but that's a success principle I learned in my first personal development book, The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. It's a great starter book. And it's the first principle in the book. And I used to be a victim when I was in my teens, and I was very down on myself, depressed. I had eating disorders. I was very unhappy. I was in a very low point. And after reading that book, I took 100% responsibility for my life, every single aspect of it. And it changed me for the better. So having that victim mentality it didn't serve me anymore. So I'm a big proponent of that as well.
I'm just so curious, where did you learn about money? Because that's a big shift for if no one around you is talking to you in that way about money, making it okay. What was the catalyst for you?
I read about it and I learned about it on YouTube. So
no way. On YouTube?
Yeah. Yes. When I first moved to London and I was alone and I had so much time on my hands when I wasn't working, because I was working 4 jobs when I first moved to London to make ends meet. But when I wasn't really socializing that much. I had a lot of time on my hands, especially traveling to and from the different jobs. I would listen to podcasts and YouTube and read books. And I loved Tony Robbins. He was the OG that I loved.
His money book is really good. His money book is really good.
Great.
Yeah.
So I learned from people on YouTube. And one of the things that I think whether it was Tony Robbins or someone in the personal development space, one of the things they said was, if you are not surrounded by people that can inspire you and teach you things, then you have the opportunity to learn all of that online. You have so many free resources. So all I would do is just listen to them online, and they became my mentors without even knowing it.
Wow. And would you kind of just pick and choose, like you'd apply a principle, and if it worked for you, you'd like use it, and then you would leave the rest? Like, how did it, what was your experience?
Used it all.
Really? Yeah. And you feel like it all kind of worked, or like that you have your own method now, or your way of working it?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I didn't like fully reject any of these principles. I would kind of see which ones interested me the most and made sense to me, because you have to understand something to really live by it. Yep. And then I would just kind of translate that into my own way of being. But what was funny, I was trying to get to a bit earlier, is that I tried to get into meditation 5-6 years ago when I first got to London, when I was first getting into the personal development space after reading my first personal growth book. I was really into it. In these YouTube videos that these personal growth gurus were saying, they had, you have to meditate. And I would try so hard. I downloaded all the apps and I really tried to meditate. And it was the one thing, it was the one principle that people said that I could never stick to. And I used to say, oh, my mind works too quickly. I can't meditate. It's boring. It just doesn't, like, I like to feel invigorated. I like to feel alive. Right. And it just never did that for me. So I started recording these voice memos to myself on my phone, and I would listen to them every day while I was getting ready for the day. There were my motivational pep talks, getting me to visualize my future, bringing in the principles from everything else I'm learning into more of like an active manifestation meditation that I would do with my eyes open. And that was the catalyst to then give me the idea to create my own meditations that are incredibly unique, that are designed for every single moment of the day, which is now Superhuman. We have 15 categories of meditations, from walking meditations, cooking meditations, cleaning meditations, like just music frequencies you can listen to while you're working to up-level your focus. Like, we have literally a meditation for anything and everything, and it's designed to be motivational, to be inspiring, to, it has very energizing music. My audio engineers really create like epic movie moments, cinematic, you're the main character vibe music, and the words are very inspiring. You never think about nothing. So that is how I created my business.
So smart, because one of the reasons people love podcasting is because they want to be with people. Like, they want to be engaged with a friend in a way. And sometimes Wallace, our producer, and I joke that, being on a podcast or listening to a podcast is like being part of a conversation that you don't have to put any effort into, but you get all the benefit from. You get just you get the pleasure from it, and it does it opens up your world. So it's kind of like you're kind of like doing that with meditation.
You know what? My goal is to create, like, when I first launched Superhuman, I was actually debating calling it meditation because it's so different to what other meditations are out there. Yeah. But I needed to meet the customer where they were, because creating a new word for this type of thing just didn't really make sense yet until we're a way bigger brand. It just doesn't make sense. So we're using the word meditation, because it's really the closest thing to it. But my goal with the business is to actually create a whole new section of audio that's called functional audio. That is not podcast, it's not an audiobook, it's not music, it's not Clubhouse. Clubhouse kind of coined social audio. No. But I know functional audio is like personal development, self-improvement content that you're listening to while going grocery shopping, while doing the dishes, while running around with your life. Because what I found out when I was doing all this research before launching this app, most people don't meditate because it requires changing a behavior. Mm-hmm. It requires you to sit down, close your eyes, put your headphones on, and do something totally out of routine. Where in reality, you can get the benefits, the motivational visualization, energy changing benefits of my type of meditation, literally by walking around and listening to it, by walking your dog, by cleaning the house, by doing it. It doesn't require change behavior. It requires you listening to something different with the same benefits. So it just makes sense.
What you're doing reminds me of it's like entertainment, but meditation. It's like meditainment.
Meditainment.
I like functional audio better. I think that's a little bit more, it's a little more
like motivation, like motivation, meditation.
Yeah.
That's what word that we were kind of thinking of, but I don't know yet.
Well, and there's so much study around sort of like the extended mind theory, and the fact that we unlock a lot in our unconscious and subconscious when we're active, when we're taking in the things around us. And like when we're in movement, even when we're in conversation, there are these gestures that are foreshadowing gestures that we use before we describe something. And it helps the person that we're talking to understand what we're saying. We don't even really realize that we're doing it. And it just goes to show you that like, really we need our entire bodies to not just understand something, but metabolize it. And, I think it's so smart. Like, yeah, when I'm sitting, usually I'm uncomfortable or I'm like, ugh, I'm gonna be doing something else. Or the last thing I want to be doing is breath work right now, but I know it's good for me. It's like taking my vitamins. So that's so brilliant. And it sounds like it came from just you figuring out what worked for you. And it's so cool that you've got tens of thousands of people now who are like, yeah, it works for me too.
Yeah. And we haven't done any paid advertising. It's all been word of mouth.
That's amazing.
It's been like crazy. We haven't, like, I'm just trying to keep my head above water, trying to, hire as many people as I can, like figure it out, build the new version of the app, do this, do that. Like, it's just crazy. So, and I agree with you, sitting down and meditating is hard sometimes. We do have seated meditations on the app, but like all of meditations are, you can listen to them whatever you're doing. And, and I really want to destigmatize meditation. Of course, there's a very traditional way to do it, and that's great, and that's for a lot of people. But for me, it never worked for me, and I needed something real, and I needed something to change my state quickly and to remind me of who I want to be every day. And that's the biggest thing, because so many of us have untapped potential within us. And I don't know about you, but my biggest fear in life is waking up one morning in my 80s or 90s full of regret, not living the life I could have lived. And that's my why with everything I do. And I found that these meditations are the easiest way to get there. From what I have experienced in my, short time on this earth, they change your state. And what is life without feeling alive? That's right. What is life without feeling alive?
Yeah, I feel you. That's my deepest fear is that, I won't be able to do everything. I want to taste everything. I want to do everything. I want my life to be like muscular, I want
everything.
Yeah.
You want to be everything.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can have it all. Like, this is one of the things that I get a lot of pushback on sometimes when I meet someone that doesn't really know my work. I'm like, oh yeah, you can have it all. I feel like I have it all, and I've created that for myself. I did not just step into this. I am a firm believer that you can have it all, and that's a limiting belief if you think you can't.
Yeah, and I think that there are people, there's a great argument to be had too, that there is systemic sort of like blocks, and honestly, like the way that the world is set up and organized, a lot of people, depending on their identity, can't have it all. Even in the United States, you look at what's happening with women and reproductive rights.
But you can move. I would move. I would move.
Yeah.
I think so outside of the box. And I know it might sound naive to some people. I respect that.
I don't think it's naive, but I think that,
I really think there's always a way. There's always a way to change something, to change where you are, to change who you surround yourself with, to change your story. And that's, I feel like that empowerment is what people need right now more than anything.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I think that we need to feel personally empowered and personally sovereign. And I think like when we really do the work, we realize that we're all one, not to sound like kumbaya cheesy. And that also inspires us to do community work too. I want to make a shift in my community, in the place that I grew up in or where I love or where I'm from, when I see that it's wrong. Like what's happening is like categorically wrong, that people are being oppressed. It can get easy to feel bogged down and to not put on your own oxygen mask first and to like do your work so that you're the strongest, best, most powerful version of yourself so that you can help other people.
No, I agree with you. And another principle that I learned in that success principles book, that's my Bible, it was talking about in the chapter, or one of the chapters within, you are responsible for your life. And it's a calculation. E plus R equals O. Event plus response equals outcome. Not just event equals outcome. It's event plus response equals outcome. And I feel like that calculation, when you're feeling like there's nothing you can do, when you're feeling like stuck and angry and like you can't, you're a victim, then you need to think to yourself, what can my response be to change my outcome, to change my story. That's helped me in moments where I have felt stuck. Like, this mentality of mine did not come easily. It took years of shedding off layers and trying to believe in myself more and trying to see the potential that did not exist.
What you said earlier when we were talking about YouTube and podcasts and kind of taking in a ton of information and playing with it, and not always, it kind of sounded like you were saying to not always take it literally, right? And I think a lot of the time with self-development or personal development, people are so by the book, right? They're sort of regurgitating what they read as opposed to really like ingesting it and getting it in their cells and feeling it and understanding it. They're just like spitting it back or parroting it back. And that's, I think, where the disconnect can come. Between like, to be personally empowered, I need to be individualistic and sort of move out of community or like worry about myself first versus like, well, to your point, like, okay, my response to this can change how I feel and also how I understand this situation. So yes, I can understand that, let's say what's happening in the US with reproductive rights, that the situation feels dire, but maybe it won't feel as dire if I respond to it by saying, you know what, I'm going to take a leadership role here and I'm going to make a shift.
Absolutely. 100%. There are so many layers to this. And I guess what I specialize in is personal development. And that's where all of these principles come from. Of course, what's happening in parts of the world is terrifying. And I'm very lucky I'm proud to not be an American, to be honest with you. I'm proud to be a Canadian at times like these.
I bet. I'm jealous.
Yeah. So I totally agree. And I think that the more that everyone in the world focuses on their own personal development as well, less bad things will happen in general too, is my personal opinion. Because happy people don't, that's a whole conversation, but yeah.
Yeah, we could get way into that. I remember when I was going through nutrition school, I was like, if everyone just ate vegetables, this world would be so different. Politicians would be different. If everyone was just was pooping every day, we'd be so much happier,
Yeah.
Sounds simplistic, but really those shifts can make a big difference.
Totally. I also believe in go where you're treated best. We're so lucky to be living in a time where it's actually pretty easy to get visas and residencies in other countries.
If you have money. Yeah.
Well, no, actually, I moved to London with no money. And I actually, there are definitely ways to do it. If 100%. I actually moved to the Bahamas before even making real money. I wanted the island lifestyle. There's always a way. There's always a way. You can get sponsored. I really think if we just think outside the box more, the best way to tell a government that you don't like what they're doing is honestly to leave. That's my personal, and to fight back, obviously, but I just think there's power in numbers.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people in the United States are really, it's been a very tumultuous last couple of years, obviously. And I think a lot of people are questioning, is this thing worth fighting for? And that's a good question, right? In general, is the relationship you're in worth fighting for? Is the country that you call home, is it worth fighting for? Is the business that you've created and worked so hard to build when it really feels hard, is it worth sticking in there and digging your heels in and sort of practicing resilience? Or do you need to check in and decide I've invested enough here. I've learned what I need to learn. And now it's time to move on to the next thing. And that can be really hard. And I think the answer is different for everyone.
Yeah, totally agreed.
I'm a tech person. I came from tech. And whenever someone builds an app, I'm like, yes, let's get into the brass tacks because it's not cheap, especially to build a really beautiful app like yours. It's expensive. So how did you, and it sounds like this is, that actual business once it was up and running is what is making you money and is doing really well now. But how did you fundraise for that? And did you bootstrap it yourself? I think that people love to hear what that really actually tangibly looks like.
Yeah, 100%. No, I've bootstrapped my entire business. I've not had any outside investment over the past couple of years. I've tried many different things in the entrepreneurial space, and I launched a subscription business back in the day, and the meditations from that, which ended up becoming Superhuman, did very well. So I pivoted and took the money I'd earned from that, put it right back into the business. My whole career, honestly, up to this point, I've just put everything that I've earned back into the business, and because of that, I have not gotten an outside investment.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
it's the best to own 100%. To have 100% ownership and control is an amazing thing. especially with the technical products. So it sounds like you had an MVP of like this membership community or subscription community. And then you kind of took the content you learned from what people loved and you leveraged it up into the app. Did you work with one developer? Did you work with a team? How did you find them? What was that like for you? Because you've never done this before, right?
No, yeah, it was a lot of learning.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You can get so, like, I remember when I was working with a dev team, I had one person come back to me and be like, yeah, it's going to be like a $500,000 build. And then another person come back and be like, we could do it for like $8,000. What?
Yeah, it really, like, I did loads of research, interviewed so many different app building agencies and freelancers. And we ended up working with this one team, and I negotiated myself an awesome deal to be able to license.
You have to negotiate it. Yes.
Yeah. No, but I licensed the app, so I didn't pay for it outright because I couldn't afford it. Yep. Even 2 years ago, like, I couldn't afford because an app is expensive.
It's really expensive.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars, and like $200 to $300 for a decent app. And so I licensed it, and I'm at the point now where I'm considering building one from scratch. We're at the point now where that's a possibility, and there are a lot of factors in that. So I don't know what I'm going to do yet with that. So that's what it is. And it's very difficult to deal with developers because they have a very different way of communication and they have different brains, and it's been a whole learning process. But my team is great, and my internal team that deals with developers they're great. And there's a lot. I think my biggest learning curve this past year with the business is working with more people, not just contractors, but like having people that work full time for me. Like, that's the hardest thing I think I've had to deal with this year. It's like, cause I'm way too nice. I'm like a friend to everyone. And then hard conversations need to be done. I'm like, what do I do? Like, I'm really trying to step into my boss mode. So that's something I'm struggling with at the moment.
I think that honestly is the hardest sort of leverage or growth point in a business, is when you start really hiring people and you go from, especially as an entrepreneur and a doer, like, you are the active sort of participant making everything, right? Like, you can do anything, you can make anything, you can figure it out. And then you start hiring specialists because you want them to be better than you.
I love delegating. Yes.
And that's what CEOs do. And that was a really hard lesson for me to learn when I first got started. It was like, no, 8-figure CEOs, they hire other people to do this stuff for them. And that's the difference between me and them. I have to start hiring people so I can become that. That's the only way forward. But it's hard, especially if you're a kind person, and especially if you're maybe younger than the people that you're working with. That can be like a tricky shift.
Yeah, I think that's the age thing, because I'm 26. Most of the people that work for me are around my age, so it's not a huge jump. But yeah, I can absolutely, I've been in calls, situations, even with potential investors, where people don't understand that I'm not a child, right? So there are a lot of, 40, 50-year-olds that don't understand having a young founder. But to be honest, I haven't really faced that problem loads. But yeah, the age thing is definitely something to note for sure.
Yeah, especially if you're not fundraising because you bootstrapped the business, like, that gives you so much credibility, and you know that you can do it too. You don't need someone else's money. Money is just money. All money is the same when it comes from investors, So when the best advice someone gave me, because I raised money for Holisticism, I ended up giving it back because I didn't like the investors, what they wanted me to do.
Really?
Yeah. And then I bootstrapped the business, and the best advice that I got was, all money from every single person is the same dollar amount, like whatever. It's just money, but you are basically marrying whoever invests in you. You're inheriting all of their emotions, their feelings, their perception of you, what they want, and also like the value that they can bring to the table. Are they an expert in something that you need help with? Do you need them as a mentor? Then take their money. But like, you can always make money. That freed me. I felt like so trapped before that, but it sounds like you figured that out.
No, that's great advice. And yeah, I think in the future we'll raise. I'm not sure when. It depends. I have big plans with the app when it comes to integrating AI and bigger projects. So that will cost millions. And I don't know if I want to fully, put my whole life savings at the time into that. I'm not sure yet. I think it might be the smart move to get strategic partners on board in the future. But right now I'm very happy self-funding it and really just learning the ins and outs of the business so well. It's still been a very, very fast experience. We launched Superhuman a year ago,
Wow.
11 months ago. So I want to just kind of bask in this right now and really just understand everything as much as I can. Like, we are just starting to consider paid advertisement and what our ad, strategy is. And I don't even know our customer acquisition costs. Like, why, what is there like amazing? I don't want to get investment now before I have all those metrics.
Well, they are amazing because you haven't paid anything for advertising yet. So you could probably calculate that number pretty easily.
Zero.
Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah, exactly. That's incredible. Yeah, you definitely don't want to get investment yet. You still have some stuff to figure out, but
totally.
That'll be easy for you.
It's also not a really good time to get investment right now.
Oh my God, no, don't raise money for like at least the next year. Definitely not. But there's also, so many different types of capitalization, that exist beyond just like traditional investment or venture. Like, something you might want to consider is a shared earnings agreement. Have you heard of it?
Yes, I have.
Oh, okay. It's pretty rare, and I didn't know about it till I was super late in fundraising, but it's like amazing, especially for someone like you who already has a really thriving business, because you're not like giving away such a big chunk of your company if that's something that's important to you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to consider. And to be honest with you, I'm so lucky that the company has done so well that honestly, we've been in profit since day one, and like our valuation's like pretty high. So I wouldn't be giving out 20% of the company for $2 million kind of thing.
No.
So I think I'm just going to wait. And it's all about the person. It's about the person. If the best investor ever comes along and they just want to get involved and they have the vision with me and they just feel really right, then I would maybe consider it. But I'm not actively looking for it right now. I really have such big goals and visions for this company, and the fact that it's so unique and it's proven it's worked incredibly well with this market. I think it's just the beginning, and we're not even a year in. So I'm thrilled. I'm so happy where we are. I want to focus 100% on the customer as I have been. And that's the way that I think it's grown so quickly too. Like, I'm constantly just focusing on the customer. What do they want? What kind of new categories, new features do they want? Like, what can help them the most? When I'm recording the meditations, what words do I need to say to create the most impact? We're actually now just getting new voices on the app. We're launching a motherhood category with this naturopath, Dr. Mallory, and she's a mother, because I'm not a mom yet, so I didn't feel like it was appropriate for me to record, because they're very intimate, real, raw pieces of audio. Yeah. So she's been recording them, and I had to train her to do it kind of in the Superhuman style, and it's just like so exciting to see other people and hear other voices. So we're slowly kind of gradually expanding. I don't want it to be all me all the time. I want to be able to globalize the product and give people something for everyone, right? So yeah, there's a lot of excitement. And I think because it's such a unique app with meditations for every moment of the day, I really think that once we get the name out even more, like, so many people are going to be turning to that. And, legally we're all locked in, so it's not like people can copy us. And right. I'm just super excited to see how it goes, because there's so many people that genuinely, like, it's changed their life, and you don't really see those reviews on the typical more big corporation meditation apps. Like, on the App Store, you don't really see like, this changed my life, like I'm a new person. But with Superhuman, it's like constantly, every day, we're getting these reviews. I think the product speaks for itself, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
I love that. This is my last question, but now that you have all of the data and the analytics, which must be so exciting for you to see, what's been the biggest, most surprising thing, meditation or category that people are most interested in that you've noticed on Superhuman?
The walking meditations, people have loved since the beginning.
That's so interesting. Yeah. Hot girl walks, I guess.
Yeah, hot girl walks. Like, people on TikTok love it. It's also just, it makes you feel on top of the world, and kind of what we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, how meditation and motion, like movement with meditation, a fabulous combination to A, help rewire your brain, and B, really make you feel like you're advancing towards something. And people love it. The music, it's like you're the main character of your life. Things are just like passing you by, and you're living in the exact moment you need to be in. And I think people love that. It's powerful. And, the other thing I've learned throughout this process is that, obviously it's been word of mouth marketing. Some bigger influencers talk about us as well. And it's so interesting because I used to think just the more followers you had, the more impactful your reach is. But I've learned the complete opposite throughout this process. Some of the people with like loads of followers literally don't convert anyone. But
Isn't that so interesting?
20,000 followers convert like so many.
Yes, we've noticed that. We've been saying that for a really long time because it's, every time we work with a huge influencer, it's like crickets. When we work with someone with 5,000 followers, even like just a super small audience, we have hundreds of conversions from them. It's so interesting.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Mimi, thank you so much. This was so great. Where can people find Superhuman? Obviously in the App Store, but is there anywhere else?
I would go to the website first because you can see like loads of different like scientific videos from our scientists. You can see member stories. You can actually see a free meditation. We actually have a 14-day free trial as well. So you can try that out too, but you can purchase your subscription or sign up for the trial on the website. Just go to www.superhuman.app, A-P-P. So not superhuman.com, superhuman.app. And then you can check it out there and sign up there. If anyone listening wants to try it out, give it a shot. You literally can just do the free trial and then cancel if you hate it. And even if you forget to cancel, you can get we have a money back guarantee. So it's completely risk free. We're very confident that everyone will love it. So, it's very low barrier to entry, and just try it out. Just try something new and it might really change your life. So, and you can find me at Mimi Bouchard on Instagram as well. I hang out there a lot.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mimi. This was great.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right, that is our show for the week. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. And if you liked this podcast, or honestly, if you've ever gotten something valuable from any episode that we've put up of the 12th House, it would mean so much if you just left a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That's how people find us and how we can get amazing sponsors to help us produce this podcast and make even better content for you. And if you really like us, please share this with your friends. Tag us on Instagram so we can see when you put in stories, and we'll repost you. We love hearing from you, and we love hearing what you want more of. We have some special things coming in the feed over the next couple of weeks, so keep your eye out for that. And I think that's it. Oh, actually, that's not it. Super important. I actually have a little free gift for you. I put together this #rosebud cheat sheet on Notion for you. It is basically a cheat sheet for free money. It is a template that you can go download with tons of resources. If you've been interested in anything that we've talked about over the last couple of weeks, I think you're going to love it. I'll put the link in the show notes so that you can go find it. And I think that's it for this week. I'll see you guys on the internet. Bye.
The 12th House is produced by yours truly, Wallace Miller Blanchard. Our theme music is made by Nathan McKay, and our wonderful editing is done by Softer Sound Studios, who you can find more information about in our show notes.